Hey folks, this is Lucid, and we're going to be doing Pretender design for Asphodel. And I've kind of done some of them, I've got an idea of what I want to use, but I'm not totally sure. So we're going to do this a little bit on the fly. Yeah, so quick summary of Asphodel. It's basically early age Pangea, except instead of nature blood, it's nature death. And it's also pop kill. So when you play this nation, you have a few basic ways you can play it. You can go one Dominion, and this, by the way, is not like in meta. I haven't really heard of people going one Dominion in growth. Typically, the way people play it is they're almost always going to do some kind of cool bless for Black Centaur, and then they stop recruiting them, and then they're very sad, and they complain about how bad Asphodel is. So we'll go through the different ways. One way is, and this is kind of the new way, the way I'm going to play it, is three growth, one Dominion, get decent scales, and then doing that though implies that you're going to get a rainbow. So you could go imprisoned rainbow, in which case you're going to have kind of slower research at the beginning but much better scales, or you could go awake rainbow and research like a mad monkey. And I'm not totally sure which one would be best. Maybe we'll do two of them here. We'll kind of talk about it. But anyway, one of them's Dominion 1, Growth 3. The second way to play them is you try not to get much Dominion because you want to enjoy the short time you have with the population. So you go like maybe Dominion 4, Dominion 5, so you can still get a fair amount of Black Centaur. And usually you want to get some nasty bless on them. So anyway, that's one way to play it. The other way is like burn shit to the ground. Probably get a bit more, like 7 or 8. You'll focus more on the free spawn. Your population's going to die even quicker, but you might be able to get more Black Centaur out, at least for a little bit. But yeah, you can. These guys do not mind having an awake expander. In fact, if you're doing the build I'm going to do, and you get one Dominion strength, it rules out getting any of these other chassis, which I actually would have liked. But anyway, we're going to have to suffer through kind of, what we can get. So anyway, we've got basically these options. Now, if we're going one Dominion, it means we're not really going to be able to get any Black Centaur. We'll have a few. Because we can only get them out of our cap, and we can only get one at a time, and that's only if we're not getting a Holy Mage. If we're getting a Panic Apostate, we can simultaneously recruit a Black Centaur. But, come on, it's one per turn. So, that does beg the question, well, what do we do? Well, we can make our bless for these guys once they become mannequins. It's a pretty niche thing to, kind of make a bless for, because Carrion Lords, their second form, they are kind of expensive, and we're banking on having, enough death gems to spit them out. Otherwise, the bless is kind of wasted. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not totally sure on the right way to do this. Anyway. But what are the things we would want on these guys? Well, you want the things that are generally good on a thug. And typically with a thug, the whole point of a thug is to not die or to make it hard to counter. The things we could potentially get, just pick a few of these real quick. There's some things that are, decent on thugs. We could do Awe would be really good because they have fear, so there's a synergy there. But Awe is expensive. And if we go Awake Researcher, going deep in a path is going to be, I don't know, it's pricey. We can get, I think, more research by not going quite as deep. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. We could go fire. We're going to need fire resistance, right? Think about the things that we're really weak against. The things we're going to be really weak against is the stuff that kills all of my chaff, which is going to be battlefield-wide evocations, and it's going to be fire elementals, and it's going to be thugs and super combatants. So, yeah. The thing is, we normally when you have chaff and you're worried about battlefield wides, you would do blood vengeance. We don't have enough sacreds. That's not going to be a thing. So yeah, what could we get? Well, fire resistance I think is going to be really important because fire elementals are going to just murder mannequins. Like they murder so many, it's crazy. They're like in the same category that I was talking about in the previous video about thugs with fire shield. It's bad. So, if we're going to send our thugs against them, just being a nature mage means they can do elemental fortitude, which gives them 5 fire resistance, which is nice. But it's probably better. It's nicer to have more. Is this required? Well, it's a little tricky to get fire resistance. You can get it with water, like once you get to construction 6. But yeah, it's kind of nice. Fire resistance is going to be a little tough for us to come by. Yeah, and all those are the good things here. Here shock resistance is nice to have on thugs. Like air elementals and stuff can murder thugs pretty good, but if you have shock resistance, you're more or less going to be better off. Thunder weapons is interesting because I believe you get 3 per vine attack. So any of your sacreds, like including your thugs, would have kind of a tremendous amount of little thunder weapon spam. But you're not going to have a tremendous amount of sacreds, so I think it's not really worth it. Windwalker is kind of interesting, but pricey. Here in water, we have a few interesting things. One is if we go cold, which I'm kind of inclined to, then we get basically Winter's Gift. And that would be, better movement for our sacreds, which would be kind of nice. Also potentially interesting would be the frost weapons, because again, we get the we get the, vine sleep vines, which have 3 attacks. So again, all the weapons are going to be kind of interesting. Chill Aura, though, I think is particularly interesting. And the reason for that is if we're cold and our guys are really hard to kill, it's just going to add one more thing. It's going to make it more expensive to counter. Because you're going to need to have cold resistance on your dudes. Otherwise, we will fatigue you out eventually if you're surrounding our thugs. So, anyway, I think that's worth mentioning. And then our undead do not have cold resistance. So, getting this will, A, make you freeze your own undead. So that's not great. But B, it means you don't have to worry about these guys getting frozen. Because part of this is you're going to get cold resistance. So that's nice. And you get... Yeah, I think it's just generally nice to have cold resistance if we're going to have cold 3. We can already go underwater. Quickness would be sort of interesting. Larger would be kind of cool, but we can already do enlarge pretty trivially. This is like one of the things we can do. We don't need to pay gems or pay bless points for it. Reinvigoration, not horrible, not great. Unbreakable, we already have recuperation, so while it would be kind of cool to just really not care about afflictions at all, we do have recuperation, so probably not needed. Fortitude would be kind of interesting, because it would be good. It would be really good. Because 100 HP dudes with Fortitude is really nice. The problem is it's too expensive. We don't have that much money. MR, I think, is one of the most important things. One of the things we're going to be really weak against is Astral Nations. So going ahead and getting the MR Bless, I think, is pretty key. Because we might be put into desperate situations where we have to use thugs against Astral Communions, which you generally never want to do. But if you're going to do it, you want to do it with like 30 MR. So this will help us on that road. You could do like Arcane Finesse, because we do have Charm Casters, but probably not worth it. And then these things aren't really... Fate Weaving might be interesting on a thug, and, Ethereal might be sort of interesting, but we're already, like, with invulnerability with Death. We're going to be vulnerable to magic weapons, so I don't think it's worth doubling down more on magic weapon stuff. And then coming down here, again, we're basically just going through this, looking at, like, what's good for a thug. Reforming Flesh is particularly good here because, well, we're going to have undead thugs after Twiceborn that are going to be sacred, so that's pretty nice. I don't think there's any... Undead Command would be potentially pretty nice. We're not going to be having... I think if you're playing like a heavier pop kill, like more Dominion, and then you're going to be burning things to the ground more and having more free spawn, you might consider this. I don't think we're going to have that much. This is not going to be like Scalaria or Airmore, where we just have ungodly amounts of pop kill and free spawn. We're going to have a fair amount, and it's going to die a lot, but I don't know. We're going to have to care more about our free spawn than Airmore or Scalaria does. Or Lemuria, right? So anyway, would be nice to have, but probably can't afford. Poison resistance, we can already cast that as nature mages. So basically everybody else can self-buff with this, so not super good. Recuperation we already have. Regeneration does not work on the undead form. Or no, it does work on the undead form, I think. But they may be inanimate. I'm not actually sure if this one works on the undead form. We would have to check. And then coming down here, we've got, in blood, Blood Vengeance would be nice if we had more Sacreds. We just don't have enough. So the typical Blood Bless for thugs is Blood Surge, because you get the reinvigoration and the defense and the attack and the strength. So anyway, these are the options. If we do... Now we'll talk about the builds. I think I've actually made some of these. So probably a lot of them are redundant, because that's typically how I do it, is like little small tweaks one after another. We'll start... Okay, well, here we go. We'll start with this guy. So, this is the Great Archon, and we could get him with Fortitude and Awe. This is like doubling. This is like super heavy bless. So, like, if you're doing a blitz, probably not a bad idea. He's going to be awake. He's strong enough where he can expand. And definitely with Awe and Fortitude, he can expand in 21 protection. So you can use him as an awake expander, run around, take some provinces, and when you're done, he can site search or go research. But yeah, this is going to be, like, this is the ideal bless to get. We aren't able to get luck 3, which kind of sucks, but, I mean, look at this. It's definitely worth not getting luck 3 for. The problem with this is that he's Dominion 3, which means your capital is going to burn down way quicker than we would want it to. So, I'm really tempted to do this, because he also has Alchemist, which is really nice. But with the Titans, there's just no way to go lower than 3 Dominion. You can't do it. So ultimately, we're probably not going to do this. But I'm tempted. And Inspiring Researcher is nice as well. I'm very tempted. Anyway. That's an option. Another option would be, well... Okay, I think this is the last one I came up with. So I think this is pretty close to what I would do. What are the things we also want? We also want Earth Astral. It's really important with this nation, so we can do the, like the Holy 3, Holy 4 undead spells. Which we're going to need priest level, 3 or 4. And to get there, we're going to need a Communion Master Matrix thingy. And... Fire Shock, Cold Resistance, and Mountain Survival is kind of nice. Reinvigoration. For a while I was thinking, because especially if we're going awake, we could just do Fire Shock Resistance and Earth. But that ends up being kind of expensive. It's not much more expensive, instead of going 5 Earth, to go ahead and spread your points out and get some Fire Shock also with a Rainbow. So I think I went for the wider approach to maybe get better research. And, so anyway, these are okay. The reinvigoration stuff isn't great. And then minor magic resistance and reforming flesh. This is like super standard for a thug bless. 1 Dominion, which is important. And then for scales, we didn't actually complete... You can see we have really good scales for Asphadel. Growth 3, Luck 3... And then we didn't even trash Turmoil all the way, and we didn't trash Productivity all the way. This will help for expansion, because expansion is a little tricky with these guys. I tested expansion. It works kind of okay. It's nothing amazing. I'm pretty sure the Great Archon I showed you would have far better expansion doing probably just like 2 Black Centaur per party. Actually, I'm not sure. But this expansion is probably not great. I think I was getting like 17, 18. So nothing to write home about. So anyway, that is Falco the Great Sage. And coming up, I had a few different varieties. Like this one, a Great Sage where I went Chill Aura and then Fire Shock Resistance, which is kind of cool. But I wonder how much the RP difference is. This guy's 64. How much is Falco? 68. So it's actually not a big difference. We really could pick between these two. So Weldon, he's got basically the same stuff here. And he's got Fire Shock Resistance and a Chill Aura. So in some ways this is nicer because we've got the Chill Aura, but it's also more expensive. Well, we could basically rejigger this. I think we could basically do 2 and 2 rather than 3 and 1, which I think would be better. We pretty quickly run into recruitment point issues once we're out of expansion. So definitely don't want to go 3 Turmoil, I don't think, if we're going to be playing this sort of semi-scalesy. Anyway, this is what we've got. So this is one option. I'm thinking about this. It's probably a pretty good idea. And then over here, okay, it's the same thing, but different scales slightly. We've got this guy who's pretty similar, the Freak Lord. The nice thing about him is once he gets... Freak Lords are size 5, so they basically turn into tarts when you twice born them. So we could basically, as soon as we get Enchant 4, get a tart with these paths, which, if that doesn't make you salivate, I don't know what will. A little vulnerable to Magic Duel, but you might be fighting people who can't Magic Duel you very easily. And because he can Magic Phase, you only take him into fights you want to. So this is pretty tempting. Here you can see we've basically completely destroyed our scales. Yeah, none of the new points over here, and then only luck 3. The thing that kind of sucks is I don't really think Blood Surge is great, but we're kind of picking it up here anyway. We could drop something here. Like, we don't need... This is redundant, right? Like the Shock. So we could drop this... I kind of wanted to have 4 so it would be easy for me to get, like, the Staff of Elemental Mastery here. That was why I did an extra one, because, like, obviously we don't need 4 for Shock, but... You know, we could also probably drop this down to 3 and then do... Basically, do the Freak Lord, but have a much more similar Bless as we had down here on this guy, where we don't have 5 Earth. We only have 3. Anyway, that's an option, and I might make that and give her a whirl. But yeah, the main reason you would do this, I don't think it's like the best chassis. It doesn't research necessarily any better. But yeah, he does basically turn into a tart, which is kind of cool. It is expensive though. It's going to be 25 death gems to turn him into a tart. And so depending on your research and all of that, yeah, it could take a while. And then, you know, do you really want to use him as a tart? See, the thing is, and what kind of swayed me against it is, I don't know if I want to plan to use him. I mean, it's nice to have as an option, but I don't know. I probably I'm gonna have to think more on it. This might be the build I should do. And I think that's about it. I think higher up here were we'll do some other builds real quick that I think are more like what people traditionally do with Asphadel. Like, people take this a lot, and they would go, like, Reforming Flesh, and then Nature, what would they get? Oh, God, I don't even know. Maybe Poison Resistance or something, and then be like, aha, Foul Vapors. Yeah, I don't know. Like, this could be a Bless you would do, and then you would want to get enough Dominion to get... You know, some Black Centaur out, probably 5 or 6. And, yeah, you are going to probably need a little bit of productivity at the beginning. Well, probably not that much. You're going to go Growth, you're going to go Magic, because you are going to kill all of your Dominion. You definitely want good free spawn. You probably tank your Temperature Scales. Yeah, you're probably going to go Cold. So, yeah, maybe something like this, and then you make a lot of... Well, this isn't actually good for your Black Centaur. So, Yeah. What would be good for your Black Centaur? Regeneration. Yeah. You could do this and kind of run over somebody. We're going to have to tank our scales a little more. All right. Something like this, and your Black Centaur are going to be very scary with the additional protection and, yeah. And then you've got this guy who can take the... If you have a Holy Priest follow him around, they can do regrowth on them. And he's going to become extra scary. So, I don't know. That's a thing you can do. You could basically take any of the monsters that you liked. I'm partial to this guy if you're going to pick an expander. He's not very good at expanding. He has regen and all, so he can kind of manage it. You're going to need to get a fair amount of Earth on him. But the nice thing about that is just having Earth Astral. And again, the problem with all the monsters is they're Dominion 2 as a minimum. So I don't know. You could also just pick an expander, right? And not get very high pass on them at all. Not even worry about a bless. Just get something to help you expand. And 2 Dominion is low enough where it's not going to murder you. Like, you'll be kind of okay. It's going to be a very long time before your capital gets fully depopulated. But it's not 1 Dominion. 1 Dominion's almost break even. So anyway, I think all the expanders are game. And they're definitely something to consider as Asphodel. I'm not really sure in what world I would get one of these guys. Because if you're getting them, you're probably going to do a bless. So I guess you could get, you could get a monolith and get a fair amount of a black centaur, and then you probably get some kind of respectable bless on them. Could you get 8? Well, I'm not totally sure what we would do here. Anyway, I think for the time being, we're going to assume my pretender will be... Well, we'll just make it real quick. We got to come up with a cool name. So I think what we're going to do... Should we do the Freak Lord? That is the main question. Should we do the Freak Lord, or should we do the Great Sage? This guy has 15 bonus research. It's kind of a lot. This is kind of not greedy, though. This guy's also an inspiring researcher, which is nice. I feel like this guy is the way to go. I think we've already made him. The only thing I'm not sure if it's Falco, like this, or if it's Weldon. This guy gives us Earth Astral. It gives us some of these, but not very high. Thing is, my magic diversity is kind of garbage with this. Like, this guy's a much better pure rainbow for just the magic path job. And I could still do transformation on him and make him kind of cool. If I wanted to. Yeah, I think this is probably what we're going to go with. So anyway, guys, this is the pretender we're going to do. And we're going to see if we can make Asphodel great again. I will see you guys in the game. Good luck.